at my first meeting in this building, and I was sitting around the table, and I was the only woman. And I realized it was really lonely, because every single person around that table was wearing a suit. Average age must have been 50, and I was a lot younger and not wearing a suit. And so I think what I've learned is it's important to build relationships and build a support system for yourself. Whether that means that you go up to somebody and say, can you be my mentor or can you be my coach? But I think it's important to have not just women, but men and women that you can talk to, that you can lean on, that you can ask for help. Do you mind if I talk without a mic? So, okay, is that better? I think it's gone off. Can you hear me? Maybe here? The feedback, okay. Okay. So build a network around yourself and a support system and make it diverse. Again, don't go for people that are like you. I think that for me has been something that I've really been able to lean on. And it's difficult. It's difficult to go up to somebody and say, could you help me? Could I call you if I'm in trouble? Could I call you to help answer a question? But you have to find the courage, because I think if you have the network, it makes navigating space easier. The other thing I think is important is be aware. You need to be aware of what success looks like for you. What's important for you? Because other people will assume what you can do and what you can't do. So when opportunities come up, they might not call you because they think, you know, CR can only do this. But if you tell your support system and your network, this is what I can do, this is what I want to do, these are the opportunities I want, when they hear of those opportunities, they will call you. I think something else that I think for me has been important is I often focus on why I don't belong in the room. Or I often focus on why I'm at that table and how I'm not qualified to be at that table. And so my support system, again, comes into play to tell me that I belong there. And that, yes, it's difficult. We have to admit it. We're constantly having to prove ourselves against a room full of men, right? We're not good enough. We've got other caregiving. We have children. We have families that we have to do, right? So there's a lot of other competing things. One of the things that I try to focus on all the time is that, yes, I should be in that room. I belong at that table, and that I'm just going to focus on doing what I do really well. And as I do it, as you climb, you lift other people up with you. So if I think about that first day in that room upstairs where I was the only woman, it became intentional for me every single day to make sure other women are in this space. So if I get invited to a cocktail party, for example, I find somebody who's got a business, a woman, to take with me. And then we work on her business cards. And my goal is, before we leave that networking event or cocktail party, that she has met 3 people and she's given her card to 3 people. So as you climb, we have a responsibility to lift others with us. So I think for me, that's been my lessons in sustainability. And when you don't have the skill, because to be honest, I don't know what I don't know. I need Brian to tell me what I don't know. So I go to Brian and say, Brian, this is what's happening in my business. What don't I know? So that's the other thing. If you don't know, ask. Find someone to ask, whoever it is. And if we don't ask, we can't grow because we don't know where our gap is.
Wow, thank you very much. I think the majority of women in the room, in tech in the room have grasped a thing or two to take away from Catherine. Thank you very much. Now, over to you, Brian. Understanding that sometimes, or most of the time, strategic partnerships help early stage startups in building their businesses, and of course, accessing capital as one of the things. What kind of partnership formation processes do you think help sustainable startups to be able to establish their first major partnerships?
Maswali magumu sana. Labda kwa kuanza, even nani ambaye ana startup humu ndani? Anyone with a startup? Anyone without a startup? Wale wengine katikati vipi? So maybe labda kushare experience. Moja is definitely partnerships is very important. Na ukifikiria partnership, mara nyingi unafikiria maybe partnership from outside, lakini hata your teammates ambao mnafanya nayo startups, actually those are actually partnerships. Ukifikiria you know, you are watu ambao wanakusupport, it's pretty much a partnership. Sema tu labda haujaiformalize, lakini actually it's a partnership. Of course, you know, kuna partnership ambazo zinakupa hela, and partnerships zingine ambazo they are maybe value based, maybe you know, you have maybe your mentors and all of that. And to me the basic things on partnership is it should be about exchanging value. Kama kuna partnership ambayo is not about exchanging value, it's actually yani it's born to crash. Yani kuna mtu ambaye baadaye atagundua kwamba either wewe unapigwa au yeye unampiga, and it won't be sustainable. Kwa hiyo to me, I really feel you need to exchange value at every point of time. Sasa on the table. Yani mimi naeta value gani? So as a startup, sometimes I feel kwamba maybe people should help us, and binafsi I really think hiyo ni one of the biggest downfall ya startups, ni kufikiria kwamba people should help you. I really think that people shouldn't help you, kwa sababu ukiona help mentality, you don't understand yani your value. Your value is actually very big. Sababu mawazo is actually value. Kwa hiyo ukiwa na mentality kwamba mimi I'm actually coming on the table with some value, hata mtu mwingine yuko very interested listen. So people are really eager to listen to people who actually offer value. And I think maybe everyone, yani ukiwa mdogo sio mkubwa, I was actually listening to this kid Yuzi, and nikimsikiliza I'm like, huyu mtoto atafika mbali, kwa sababu from young age yeye hafikiri kwamba how many people watanisaidia, yeye anafikiria tu kwamba mimi what value am I offering. And trust me, you'll get so many partnerships, whether it's monetary partnerships, whether the people ambao they just want to grab and actually help you. Lakini wewe, to me, is like, you know, think every time, what value am I bringing on the table?
Wow, thank you very much. Startups, show your value when positioning yourselves for this strategic partnerships. Now, over to you, Dr. Erasto. Being the CEO of Datek Nohama Business Incubator, I'm sure you interact with a number of startups. What would you say are the main challenges that startups face in regards to leveraging on technology in sustainability?
Yeah, thank you. Really, that one is a very technical question. And because my colleague here has put the level ground asking who are having startups here, so even my response, it will be verified by them. In fact, as far as DTBI is concerned, we are working with startup who join from the early stage, coming up with the prototype. We call they join at the stage of incubation. So we are lucky because we are working with Boon Hub. So most of the time, those who come with an idea, they join first in the Boon Hub to develop a prototype. So once they have a prototype, then they can join the DTBI. The challenge to them is more relating to regulatory authorities. As you know, for this novel business, which are on innovations, you may find there is no regulation which is taking care of that particular product. So now we as a government, especially the COSTECH, we do guide the startups on these challenges. Like if they, for TRI, they ask them to have a physical address. So we provide the incubation, and they can use the physical address from COSTECH. So now they can proceed with the registration of their startup. And because as a startup, like the sustainability of startup, is maybe we need to define, because what is the life cycle of the startup? For us in DTBI, once they join as a startup, they need to grow. The growth is determined in 3 levels. The first level is the strategy to go to the market. The second level is how much they can return in a month. And the third level, now the connection. So once they go to that level, now they can grow to the next stage to become a company, of which now there's a lot of requirement about registration, of which we do support them. There is a requirement to be introduced, of which we supported the government. If they require something for registration in BRELA, we do support them. So there are other requirements like legal requirements, financial support, and those kind of things. When they are under incubation at DTBI, they get those support. Now the challenge, because we cannot incubate many, those who are not in the incubation, so they face the challenges of regulatory authorities, they face the challenges of those which are relating to TRA. Also, they face the challenges which are relating how to get the financial support to come up with a business model. Because those who are incubated, they have a chance to get those experts to come and guide them how to develop the business model of their products. So, having looked to this as a government, we have come up with an idea of having a regulatory sandboxes, of which they are going to be established in different regulatory authorities. Even those who are not in the incubation, if they have their new products they want to test, at least they can have a chance to go and test their products before it can be accepted to be in the market. And we believe by doing so, there will be also an opportunity to inform the government that we don't have the policy to support the startups. Let's come up with a policy. And the policy now it will inform that we need to have an act, Startup Act, of which it will give a guarantee to the startup within the ecosystem in Tanzania, even to interact with other startups outside the country. And then it can even attract even the investors. Because when we are talking about startup, we are talking about the innovator. But they go hand in hand with investors. So those are the challenges they face, but we are trying to get a suitable environment for them to be able to continue with their business.
Thank you very much, Doctor. That's a great job that DTBI is doing. Now, having interacted with a number of these startups, what would you say, or what do you think is the role of technology in ensuring that these startups are sustainable?
Yeah, when we talk about sustainability in technology, is the ownership of the technology. Ownership of the technology is about the intellectual property, of which it has different levels. We are talking for structured one, we're talking about the patent, for those that are patentable. And for those which are dealing with business, about the trademark. And if maybe someone has come with something which is very specific for here, for just in Tanzania, it's geographical indications. So if you are able to own, then you can sell to anyone. This is my technology. You need not even to commercialize by yourself. You can choose to license. So most of the startups, you find they go quickly to the market as a traditional product. They send as a traditional product. And you'll be noticed that most of the companies which are very successful in the world, they are selling intellectual properties. or you can even interact. Maybe find a way to cooperate under license. So what we are doing now, we are establishing technology innovation support centers in most of the research development institution and the higher learning institution. And this, I may make it a call to startups to even join the effort of the government to be part of the technology innovation support centers. Because through that, we will be able to interact with the WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, and even the regional intellectual property organization, ARIPO, so that we'll be able to own our innovation. So that part of owning innovation is very important, and it is sustainable. If you have, let's say, a patent, you are able, as a founder of that startup, you are able to own it for about 20 years. If you have a copyright of a particular maybe system or program, you can own even for your entire life. And even when you die, you can own it for another 50 years. So that ownership of technology is very important. And here at COSTECH, we have a dedicated section which is dealing with technology innovation. That it helps to come up with the innovative products. And also there is another section which is dealing with technology transfer. Once you own, you can transfer that technology to the other at a cost, or depending on the kind of agreement you choose to make. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. That's a very nice twist on the role of technology in terms of ownership of the IP assets of these startups. Now, I'd like to welcome any questions from the audience or virtual questions from Zoom, if any. Lulu, do you have any questions? Questions from the audience to our panelists? Yes, Asha.
Me, I'm more interested in, I think what Brian said has to do a bit with what Catherine had said before. So when it comes to partnerships, yeah, you know that maybe you need to identify, Nataka Rafiki, I want this skill set, this sort of skill set. So how do you balance? How do you convince a person with a certain skill set who has to be rightfully played at a certain expense which you can't afford? I think maybe you should also look into that, try to get to understand how you can convince people to bring them on board while you're not able yet to afford their skill set.
I think this is directed to you, Ms. Catherine Rose, or both of you.
Okay. So I think what you maybe could do is, I go back to what Brian says, is show value for what that person could get from your organization. So I think if you were to target a director or a head department, it might be more difficult for them to say, okay, I'll give you some free time. But if you target middle management, they've got a couple of years of work experience, and you offer to say, okay, look, could you come and be an advisor or a mentor for something specific? So not for 5 years, right? Because maybe you say for a specific project. And this is what I can offer you. I can offer you visibility on my website to say you're part of the growing team. You can list yourself as an advisor, and or you could say you could set up maybe an advisory board and bring these people in as an advisory board. So a lot of, if I think about me, for example, when I was trying to figure out, should I be on a board? Do I want to be on a board? Do I want to grow that skill in myself as a leader? I looked at small organizations that I thought, okay, I have something of value to give them, and they have something to give me. And that's what led me to be on the board of an organization in Kagera, where my family is not even from. But I think when I think about that, I think there's a trade-off. There's a value exchange that Brian talked about. And maybe it's not about targeting the HODs and the directors or the partners, but it's targeting that want to give something back, middle management, heads of programs that want to give something back but don't know how to because nobody's approached them. To say, Brian, could you give me 2 hours of your time a month? And, this is what I need. And I think you have to be specific with what you want. So if you go to Brian and you say, tell me everything, he can't do that. But if you say, Brian, I need 2 hours of your time to understand how to define my strategy for my organization, I don't see why Brian would say no. If you make it worthwhile for him to say, look, I can feature you, or we can talk about you, think about how you could word it so Brian knows he's expanding his skill set. And maybe that's one way to think about getting people on board. If you bring somebody on board as an advisor, maybe for your board, give them a specific time that you need them. So say, I need you for 12 months, but I'm not going to call you every day. Maybe once a month we can do a call. Maybe that's something that could work. And I think if you have mentors, is to ask your mentors to reach into their network and ask them to see if there's anyone that would be willing to give you time for something. And I think that could also work. Because you're right, it is expensive to bring on someone like Joseph, right? But if you appeal to Joseph's softer side, and, so you could do, I'm using you as an example, Joseph, but, what I'm just saying is the head of Fungo might not have time to give you, but the next person who wants to kind of give back, they could possibly say, yes, I'm willing to give you a couple of hours a month. But I think the other thing is don't be afraid to ask. Because if you don't ask, you don't know if the person will say yes. And the other thing that I like to include in the asking is, I say to them, if you can't do it, can you point me in the direction of somebody who can? And then maybe they will give you their friend. So Joseph will say, no, my friend can do it. So, use the network a little bit like that. I don't know if I answered you.
Brian, do you want to add anything to that?
Labda kidogo, and I think pia inategemea what are you exactly looking for. Mfano, if you are, if you're looking for a co-founder, it will be tofauti. The search will be different if you're looking for maybe an advisor, right? Kwa hiyo, maybe binafsi I feel like you need to understand yourself very well, and I feel like maybe just from my own journey, we don't spend a lot of time understanding ourselves. Kwa hiyo, hata unavyoomba, mara nyingi you just think you have a problem, like maybe most of the time you don't. So that nikiwa naomba kama kazi nasema, I'm asking for something very specific kwa sababu moja, I've actually spent a lot of time understanding myself. Even in a business, understanding the business. Kwa sababu if I go to a very direct question, like can you show me maybe I'm failing here exactly, it's very easy for people to actually offer advice over nini than these really blanket statements. But I think moja is understanding yourself, understanding your weaknesses. Kwa mfano kama if you want to bring a co-founder, understanding even mimi, what are the things I can't do. The second thing to me convincing people is, I don't know, that's just me, like focus on short-term commitments than long-term commitments. Just kwa sababu